I have been keeping my eye on the Canary Capital XRP ETF for quite some time now, ever since it did launch. I've been specifically watching the quantity, not so much the market value, because the market value is affected by XRP's price. However, the quantity here is over 124 million XRP. This is a very, very good stat line to just kind of keep track of. Because again, it gives us a great insight on how the additional ETFs will perform. Now, one thing that did happen earlier today was the update around Franklin Templeton's ETF getting pushed to the 24th. This was not, something that I was expecting because we did have our date in mind, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But the main reason for that delay, well, it's mainly because of when they filed their forms, which we'll go over as well. So let's first start off with, of course, the ETF that did go live earlier today, which was Amplify ETFs. This is their first US listed XRP option income ETF. So we have here Amplify ETFs announces the first US listed XRP option income ETF, XRPM, sorry. Amplify XRP 3% monthly premium income ETF targets 36% annualized option premium income. Now, I think that this is good. However, it's not it's not a crazy ETF around, for example, like Franklin Templeton, but it's still a very good ETF launch. It's just another one to, add to the list. And by the way, Amplify does have well over $16 billion plus in assets under management as of 10/31. So again, this is not a small time name, significantly larger than Canary. So this is a very good launch. It kind of feels as if we are now starting to see a flood of XRP ETF products, which we love to see. And I think that this is just the beginning. I think that we're going to see a lot more hitting the market over the course of the next couple months. Now, let's go over the dates that we have now. This is the updated list. This got posted from Zach Rector 7. And we have here updated spot XRP ETF launch dates. So Canaries is live. That was from 11/13. Bitwise is 11/20. So in 2 days. Well, technically a day from now. And then Grayscale 11/24. And Franklin is also 11/24. The rest are to be determined. Wisdom Tree 21 shares and Coin shares have not yet updated their filings properly to start the 20-day countdown. And that's exactly what we're going off of here instead of the deadline. The original deadline that we were going off of was this one, which was the fact that if we go down the list to Franklin Templeton, November 14th or the 18th was the deadline. However, because of when they did file their forms, and we have over here from Eleanor Tourette, they updated their S1 on the 4th. So if you think plus 20 days from there, it would be the 24th. We were expecting the 18th, aka the final deadline for this, to be the day that we do start to see this trading live, because again, it made a lot of sense considering the fact that, Canaries hit the deadline and we had it trading live, but I guess it's a little bit different here for Franklin Templeton. Regardless of that, next week, this does go live on the 24th. So, Monday will essentially be the main focus for that. Is it going to actually go live on the 24th? Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it feels as if we could see a few launches happening on the 24th. And then this week, the main one that I am looking at is Bitwise. Now, I do know that Zach is saying that CoinShares was to be determined. We do have a date for the CoinShares one over here, which was the November 22nd date, aka the deadline for that. That is going to be Saturday. So that won't launch on a weekend. It would most likely be sometime next week. It could happen this week prior to the 22nd. That's definitely a possibility. But I would expect probably next week with that one, if that date is accurate. Again, because I'm trying to go off of these dates the best, possible, because this is exactly the deadlines that we do have in front of us. However, it seems as though we need to go off of those filings. And right now, if we're thinking about Wisdom Tree, 21 shares and Coin shares, they have not yet updated their filings to start that 20-day countdown. So we don't know when those three are going to go live. And, when we think about what's happening here, we have to look at the 20-day time frame for a lot of these ETFs, including, of course, Franklin Templeton. So we are now looking at November 24th being the moment where we start to see some of the biggest ETFs around XRP launching, including, of course, Franklin Templeton's. Big shout out to Status for this. But on top of that, we need to 100% focus on Bitwise, because Bitwise is a big name, and that's in just a day. So I'm definitely focused on that one going fully live. Now, also talking about Franklin Templeton, because, I want to go back to the idea here of Franklin Templeton having a significantly larger base than Canary. I have been tracking Canary simply to gauge how much demand some of these additional players can have, right? Because again, with Canary, they have over 124 plus million XRP tied back to them in terms of their holdings. This is the equivalent to currently at market value, $265 million. This is a very, very good performance from a name like Canary that does have, at some point in time, it was $200 million in assets under management. Today, it's a little bit different because, again, we do have a lot more money tied back to their XRP fund. But, compared to Bitwise or even Franklin Templeton, this is just drops of water in the bucket. That's why I am locked in on Franklin Templeton. I think that this is going to be the biggest XRP ETF to go live until we start to see names like BlackRock enter the space or Fidelity enter the space with an XRP ETF, which is still unknown if that's going to happen. In my opinion, it will happen, but it's still unknown. But if we are thinking about this, okay, Franklin Templeton has mentioned many times over in the past that they want to support projects and networks outside of Bitcoin. For an example, Smoke Dog did make a post recently, and this goes back to the 17th, and we have here, in light of Franklin Templeton's upcoming XRP ETF, this deserves another look. Franklin Templeton, other layer ones outside of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana have massive potential. They were pointing directly towards XRP, a point now validated by their decision to launch an XRP ETF. And this goes all the way back to January of last year, actually, not this year. So this is kind of right around the same exact time where Jenny Johnson was talking about Bitcoin as well being a distraction. I did post that video clip yet again on X. This goes all the way back to December of 2024. Obviously, this clip was not from December of 2024. It was a little bit older than that. I think that it was more so around like the beginning of the year, right around the same exact time that they were talking about other layer ones outside of those top three do have a lot more potential. But this is where Jenny Johnson was talking about how Bitcoin is the greatest distraction from what's happening. And I even said here that with the launch of Franklin Templeton's XRP ETF nearly upon us, I think it's a good time to bring this video back up. The CEO of Franklin Templeton, Jenny Johnson, literally told you that Bitcoin is the distraction from the greatest disruption coming to financial services. What she is really telling us is that Bitcoin lacks the viable tech to be utilized for what institutions want. Tokenization to institutional DeFi to the entire financial system on chain. The demand is far too much for the inefficient networks that can't scale. This also includes networks whose gas fees drastically increase once demand does too. Obviously, I'm talking about Ethereum. Focus on the right tech, the most efficient tech, and that's where you will find the holy grail. Listen closely to what Jenny Johnson is saying here.
Bitcoin is the greatest distraction from the greatest disruption that is coming to financial services. I think AI is probably the other big disruption there, but and there's so much noise around a lot of things like FTX and others. But if you bring the technology down to its core value, it does three things. One is it allows a payment mechanism. Number two, it allows smart contracts to be programmed into the token. And three, because it's a general ledger, it has a source of truth. So whoever has that token, all rights in that token are granted to that person. So if I sell it to Frank, I don't have to go through a third party to do it. Frank gets it, and Frank gets all the rights. So my favorite example is Rihanna, who came out with, right before the Super Bowl, and I know she's just testing the market in this, 300 NFTs, each one worth 0.00033% royalties on one of her biggest songs. Well, why can she do that? She can do it because when Spotify plays a Rihanna song, it can capture, the smart contract executes and says, I owe royalties here. And so nobody has to be involved in it. And it can take the fractional payment and go to, because Frank's a big Rihanna fan, so it goes to his account, and he owns a couple of those, and he's paid, right? So now think about any way in which you have revenue streams or royalty streams that you can now start to fractionalize that or democratize that, and think about how that is an uncorrelated asset to all the traditional assets. So other examples is, I think that athletes are they'll sign a big contract, they'll say to their fans, I'm going to sell off, tokens worth 10% of my future revenue stream, I'm going to, 100,000 tokens, and boom, the fans are going to probably pay a premium for it. So it will be a way, and if you think about it, it's just securitization done on steroids. And it's merely that this technology is enabling it, and it's also enabling other very interesting companies that will disrupt some of the traditional business models that we have today.
Now, on top of this, right, what's crazy about this video clip is the fact that still today, most people are still saying that, oh no, it's Bitcoin. Bitcoin's always going to be number one. What's crazy about this video clip is how the market has shifted into, a much more mature spotlight, if you will. What Jenny Johnson said back in 2024 today means so much more. I think that it's crucial to listen to what she is telling us because, again, I do think that Bitcoin is a big distraction. I think that most people are overlooking a lot of these utility-based projects because there's so much FUD, there's so much noise, there's so much negativity out there. But again, it even goes back to what we heard from the head of innovation at Franklin Templeton. Big shout out to Subjective Views for this. This is Sandy Cole. She just said that blockchain protocols are going to be the future utilities for the entire world. All books on records will be on public blockchains and financial products will be digitally native. They also believe that the layer ones and layer twos will become the utility ledgers for the entire world.
We firmly believe that blockchain and these protocols are going to be the future utilities for the entire world, right? I don't believe in 15 years, 20 years, any organization, company, government, small business, individual, none of us are going to keep our own books and records, right? This is going to all be on public blockchain. These L1s and L2s that are out today, they are becoming, to us, the utility ledgers for the entire world. And so we are moving our whole thinking towards this infrastructure, which means no more accounts, all wallet-based. We believe that the entire future is going to be operated out of cryptographically protected wallets. And that means that every asset that sits in that wallet is going to be either a digitally native asset, a cryptocurrency, or a tokenized asset. And therefore, they are going to be interoperable. They're going to be commingled. They're going to have greater utility. They're going to settle instantly. They are going to be able to be easily transferred, and they're going to be able to be pledged in terms of collateral or liquidity pools or staking pools. There's going to be so much more that we believe people are going to be able to do with their assets. And so what we're doing is we're really building our future state infrastructure inside of our current infrastructure. And so we have committed to wallets, and we have committed to this idea that products in the future are going to be digitally native. Most of our asset manager peers at this point are still working on this premise that blockchain is going to supplement their current account-based, mainframe-based systems. And so they're content using digital twins. But we don't feel that digital twins fulfill the true purpose and utility of the blockchain, and they don't have nearly the same number of use cases. So I think that's the biggest difference. And then I think just the earliness of our journey and the fact that we've been engaged with not just the SEC, but a global set of regulators for going on 7 full years now. And so we've built up a lot of trust, and we've gotten a lot of permissions to do things that no other asset manager has. So I think that's been the big difference in why we're so far ahead right now.
So yeah, I mean, listen, when we are thinking about what's happening here, the institutional players have been telling us the path forward. Most people don't listen because, again, they're just looking at the price action saying, oh, well, I don't care what they're telling us. The price sucks. But when we think about what's really going on here, everything is still tied back to Bitcoin, which is, guess what? The biggest distraction from the greatest disruption. So if we're thinking about Bitcoin's price action being the anchor of this space, at some point in time, things are going to completely decouple. We're going to see, utility be the main focus. And at that point, we will see the real value of these assets become a reality. And that's when I am really going to be excited to see where this space is headed, because right now, almost everything in the space is just ridiculous. So, I mean, if you think about how this space has evolved over the years, it's great, but we're still tied back to Bitcoin, and that should simply not be the case. So I'm waiting for us to decouple. I'm waiting for the price action of these assets to no longer be determined by what Bitcoin does, and utility be the driver. And I'm very excited about that day. So with that being said, if we think about what Franklin Templeton is telling us, and if we're, really thinking about how bullish they are on, other networks in the space and the utility side of the space, it's very clear on why they want an XRP ETF. And I'm very excited about, what happens with this ETF and, how successful it is as well. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.